Sunday, February 8th. The situation has shifted from a legal battle to a federal manhunt. A federal judge has officially issued the order commanding the United States Marshal Service to move on Ivanka Trump. We are looking at a seizure involving $47.3 million, a trail of 127 separate evidentiary documents, and a prison sentence that is no longer theoretical. It is currently on the table and active. The escalation timeline is terrifyingly fast. On Thursday, the court filing hit the docket. On Friday, the marshals were dispatched. By Saturday, the entire Trump family apparatus went completely dark. It took exactly 3 days for this to spiral out of control. According to the specific court documents filed in the Southern District of New York, Ivanka Trump has failed to comply with a court-mandated surrender deadline. But that isn't the twist. The element that absolutely nobody predicted involves Melania Trump. When she was pressed by legal counsel to provide the kind of standard testimony that could reduce Ivanka's sentence, she didn't just hesitate, she publicly refused on the record. As for Donald Trump's response, I'm going to walk you through the statement because I have been combing through these filings for hours. Before we dissect the documents, I need to mention that things are moving faster than I can record. For the unfiltered raw updates that are too sensitive or breaking too quickly for a full video, including behind-the-scenes details and follow-up news that might hit 10 minutes from now, I am posting everything in my private WhatsApp channel. It's the only place to get the breaking intel before the mainstream catches up. You can find the invitation in the description. Let's establish the context so you understand the gravity of this. Ivanka Trump, the former senior advisor to the White House, the daughter of a president, and the wife of Jared Kushner, is the central figure. The core issue is a conviction for financial fraud and obstruction of justice. These charges stem directly from foreign business dealings conducted while her father was sitting in the Oval Office. If you want the fast version of the timeline, here it is. Months ago, federal investigators served subpoenas for financial records tied to a massive real estate deal in Dubai valued at $340 million. Weeks after that, a grand jury handed down an indictment on 7 counts. Last month, a jury found her guilty on 5 of those counts. The sentencing was definitive, 36 months in federal prison with an order to self-surrender. She simply did not show up. That is the setup. The judge overseeing this, who was indeed appointed during the Obama administration, a fact critics are loudly pointing out, issued a bench warrant immediately. By Thursday, that warrant escalated to a full directive for the US Marshals. This is where the narrative gets incredibly messy. Melania Trump was subpoenaed to appear as a character witness. This is standard procedure in sentencing appeals where family members almost always testify to the defendant's good nature to plead for leniency. Melania showed up to the deposition. She read her prepared statement, but when she was asked directly on the official record if she would vouch for Ivanka's character, her answer was chilling. She stated, quote, "I am not in a position to provide that testimony. I am not interpreting her silence. I am reading you the transcript of her words." Now let's look at the evidence. The first document was filed on Thursday, February 5th. I pulled up page 23 to see the exact language. It reads, quote, "Defendant Ivanka Marie Trump failed to present herself at FCI Danbury as ordered by this court constituting willful noncompliance with lawful judicial mandate." That is not my opinion. That is the legal text. It means she ghosted her prison surrender date. That is contempt of court. But the detail that actually stopped me cold is on page 47. In a completely different section of the filing, there is a reference to wire transfers totaling $18.2 million. These funds were routed through a Wyoming LLC that was registered exactly 3 days before the original indictment came down. 3 days. When you put those two facts together, it becomes obvious that this wasn't a random administrative error. Someone saw this coming. I reviewed this timeline 4 times to be sure. The pattern is undeniable. The LLC was formed in January 2025. The $18.2 million was transferred within 72 hours of that formation. The account was flagged by FinCEN, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, but for reasons yet to be explained, it was never frozen. It is all documented now. There is a piece of evidence that nobody else is covering. It is marked as Exhibit F, and it was buried deep in the appendix on page 89. The communication logs reveal 31 text messages exchanged between Ivanka Trump and a number traced back to a Secret Service detail, technically a former detail since she lost her official protection last year. These texts were sent the very night before her surrender deadline, and then they were deleted. Prosecutors, however, managed to recover them. Read that again. This changes the entire complexion of the case. One specific message, timestamped at 11:47 p.m. on Wednesday, reads, "Package ready, route confirmed." The prosecutors are arguing that this indicates active flight preparation. The defense is claiming it refers to moving personal belongings. You can decide which narrative fits the facts. The second critical document is the Melania deposition filed on Friday. It runs 67 pages, and while most of it is procedural legal jargon, page 34, lines 4 through 11 contain the bombshell. The question posed was, Mrs. Trump, in your experience with the defendant, would you characterize her as someone who respects the rule of law? Her answer, I would characterize her as someone who protects her interests. The follow-up question was sharp. Is that a yes or no? Her answer, that is my answer. It is incredibly cold. The relationship between Melania and Ivanka has been documented as strained for years, with entire books written about their internal conflicts. But this is different. This is happening on the record in a federal legal proceeding under oath. And there is more. On page 51, the prosecutor asks about a specific dinner that took place in 2024. Melania confirms she was present. According to the transcript, at that dinner, Ivanka allegedly discussed contingency options in the event that legal proceedings went badly. When asked what she understood that phrase to mean, Melania responded, I understood it to mean what it sounded like. The fallout from this was immediate. The judge cited this exact testimony in his escalation order on Thursday. Specifically on page 12, he wrote, the defendant's own family members have provided testimony suggesting pre-planned noncompliance. As a result, the marshals were authorized to use necessary means. The $500,000 bond was forfeited, and additional charges for flight risk are now under consideration within 48 hours of that deposition. The third document is Trump's statement released Saturday morning via Truth Social and then formally through counsel. It consists of 8 paragraphs, but I will summarize the core points. He calls the judge corrupt. He refers to the US Marshals as Biden's Gestapo. He claims Melania's testimony was taken out of context by sick people. However, notice what is missing. He does not deny the LLC transfers. He does not explain the deleted texts. And most importantly, he does not say where Ivanka is. That is just the first batch of documents. There is significantly more to unpack. We have to be fair here and look at the other side because the defense raises valid points. Trump supporters are calling this selective prosecution and political theater timed before the midterms. And honestly, some of that argument holds water. Point 1, the Judge Bernard Hayes donated to Democratic campaigns in 2018 and 2020. That is a matter of public record. The donations combined to $2,700. Point 2, this case was brought by prosecutors in the Southern District of New York, the same office that has pursued Trump family members repeatedly. A pattern clearly exists. Point 3, other political figures have faced similar allegations and received deferred prosecution agreements. Why not her? That isn't a crazy question. It is documented history. Even Rod Rosenstein, the former deputy attorney general under Trump, said in an interview last week, the intensity of pursuit here raises legitimate questions about proportionality. You don't have to agree with all of it to admit that isn't nothing. They have a case. Other real estate fraud cases with similar dollar amounts have resulted in fines, not prison time. The obstruction charge relies on document timing that Ivanka's lawyers insist is coincidental. 2 jurors have since given interviews suggesting they felt external pressure. Even Alan Dershowitz, who is certainly no partisan for the Trump family, but is a consistent voice on civil liberties, admits that the evidentiary threshold for the obstruction count was unusually low. Look, I am not here to tell you who is right. From one angle, Ivanka Trump committed federal crimes, was convicted by a jury of her peers, and is now evading a lawful sentence. That is serious. That is prison-worthy behavior. From another angle, she is a political target, prosecuted aggressively because of her last name, and is now being hunted by federal marshals like a drug lord. That feels excessive. Both things can be true at the same time. That is what makes this situation so complicated. The Melania piece, however, is where even the staunchest Trump supporters go quiet, because here is the reality. If this is all political persecution, why wouldn't Melania just say the nice things? It would take 5 minutes to vouch for her stepdaughter and go home. She didn't do that. She went in there under oath and gave answers that prosecutors immediately used to escalate enforcement. That is not political theater. That is family dynamics playing out in court. Some loyalists argue Melania was pressured or that the deposition was a trap, maybe, but the transcript shows she had multiple opportunities to soften her answers, and she chose not to. The prosecutor asked, "Do you describe your relationship with Ivanka Trump as close?" Her answer, "I would describe it as professional." Professional. Your stepmother of 20 years describes the relationship as professional. I am not reading into that emotionally. I am telling you what the documents show. They show a family fracturing under legal pressure, with the former First Lady putting distance between herself and her stepdaughter at the exact moment that testimony could save her. Whether that choice is personal or strategic, we don't know yet. What we do know is that the judge noticed it and acted on it. This didn't come out of nowhere. Let's do a quick backstory. Years ago, the Trump family business model attracted IRS attention with multiple audits, but nothing ever stuck. Then federal investigators started looking at foreign deals, specifically projects in Dubai, Saudi Arabia, and Indonesia that involved government permits and significant family profit. Later, Ivanka's role came into focus. She was the point person on several of these deals while simultaneously serving as a White House advisor. The conflict of interest wasn't even hidden. Michael Cohen, the former Trump fixer turned critic, said in testimony, the deals never stopped. The White House just became the sales office. What happened is that prosecutors finally built a case they could prove. The pattern was consistent. Foreign permits were approved shortly after meetings with Trump officials. Trump Organization profits were deposited within weeks. Ivanka's signature appeared on contracts dated during her government service. Every time they got away with it, the argument was always that she was just a family member, not a decision maker. Plausible deniability. But the Dubai deal broke that defense. Email surfaced showing Ivanka directly negotiating terms with Emirati officials while her father was president. One email from 2019 reads, "Dad is aware and supportive. Let's close this." That email became Exhibit A. Until Thursday, she had never faced real consequences. The conviction changed that. The 36-month sentence was seen as lenient by prosecutors and harsh by defenders. But it was real. And when she didn't show up, everything changed. Here is exactly how the escalation unfolded. Thursday, February 5th at 4:23 p.m. Eastern Time, Judge Hayes convened an emergency session with no public notice in a sealed courtroom. Prosecutors presented evidence that Ivanka Trump had not arrived at FCI Danbury as ordered. They also presented the recovered text messages and Melania's deposition. The court found probable cause to believe the defendant is actively evading lawful custody. That is the order signed at 5:47 p.m. US Marshals were activated within the hour. The reaction in the room was intense. Ivanka's attorneys, 3 of them present, requested an immediate stay. It was denied. What followed was a blitz. Marshals deployed to known Trump properties. Private aviation records were subpoenaed. Border agencies were notified. All of this happened within 4 hours. Now, here is what everyone missed. While people were focused on the martial order, something else happened. Jared Kushner, Ivanka's husband, was spotted Friday morning at Teterboro Airport boarding a private jet. He boarded alone. The flight plan was filed to Nassau, Bahamas. Now, there is no evidence Ivanka was on that plane. The tail number was checked, and the passenger manifest shows only Kushner, but the Bahamas has no extradition treaty with the United States for this specific category of offense. That is not speculation, that is treaty law. Then, on Saturday morning, a second plane with a different registration owned by a Montana LLC with no public officers departed the same airport. The destination was unknown, and the flight plan was sealed. The Secret Service, now her former protection, refused to comment on her whereabouts. Her attorneys issued a statement saying Trump remains committed to resolving this matter through proper legal channels. They did not say where she is. Judge Hayes' response was swift. He scheduled a hearing for Tuesday and added a new item to the docket: inquiry into potential aiding and abetting of fugitive flight. This wasn't reactive. It was calculated. You can see it in the sequencing. Friday, Jared leaves. Saturday, the second plane leaves. Saturday evening, the judge adds the aiding charge. This is where it gets truly interesting. What are the experts saying about this legal nightmare? I looked at the analysis from a former federal prosecutor with 18 years of experience in the Southern District of New York. He stated that flight from a federal sentence isn't just contempt. It is a new felony. She is compounding her legal exposure exponentially. In plain English, every day she is missing, she is making it worse. A constitutional law professor at Georgetown added that the marshals have broad authority here. This isn't a polite request anymore. This is the active pursuit of a federal fugitive. The key word there is fugitive. That status changes everything. Even Jonathan Turley, who often defends the Trump family in the media, admits that the failure to appear was a catastrophic strategic error. Her legal team should have ensured compliance while appealing. When both sides agree, you need to pay attention. A criminal defense attorney with 24 years of white-collar experience noted that the Melania testimony is devastating, not because of what she said, but because of what she didn't say. Character witnesses who hedge their answers become prosecution witnesses. Translation: Melania's cold answers didn't help Ivanka. They actively helped the case against her. A former FBI assistant director pointed out that the second plane is what they would call an indicator. The Marshals will be all over that manifest. If she was on it, they will know within days. Regarding the political persecution argument, former Attorney General Bill Barr, obviously no liberal, addressed this Friday on Fox News. He said, "Whether the prosecution was motivated by politics or not, the conviction is real and the sentence is valid. Fleeing was the worst possible choice. Even defenders aren't defending the flight." The consensus from across the spectrum is that while the conviction might be appealable and the sentence might be reducible, running makes both harder, maybe impossible. A former US Marshal with 22 years on the job put it bluntly, "We don't stop. That's not how this works. She'll be found. The question is whether it's dignified or not. He isn't being dramatic. That is the job description. Why should you care? Let's talk about how this affects actual people and money. If you own stocks, pay attention. Trump Media and Technology Group, the parent company of Truth Social, dropped 14% on Friday. If your portfolio is in any fund that holds TMTG or related media stocks, you felt this. The broader market hates uncertainty, and the uncertainty around a former president's family becoming federal fugitives creates instability. Investors are moving positions to less volatile sectors until this resolves. This isn't advice, just an observation of trading patterns. Then there is the precedent. This sets a massive precedent. The last time Marshals were ordered to pursue a member of a presidential family was never. This is entirely new territory. The next time you hear about wealthy defendants and voluntary surrender, know that the rules just changed. For example, if you are convicted of financial fraud, the same tier of offense judges used to assume compliance. Self-surrender was standard. After this, expect ankle monitors, expect passport seizure, and expect marshals at the courthouse. That is how precedent works. Right now, every defendant with pending self-surrender orders is being reevaluated. Federal sources say prosecutors in at least 4 districts have filed motions to modify surrender terms for high net worth defendants since Thursday. Not because of guilt, but because of flight risk math. If Ivanka runs, everyone pays. That impact hits within weeks. And then there is the uncomfortable part that nobody wants to say. The justice system isn't equal. It never was. But if a billionaire's daughter with Secret Service connections can just disappear, while a regular person would be in cuffs within hours, that gap becomes visibly undeniable. If you have ever sat on a jury, paid taxes to fund the courts, or believe the system applies to everyone, this is a test. Political midterms are 9 months away. Republican candidates will have to answer questions about this. Democrats will use every photo of marshals at Trump properties. If you vote, this becomes part of the conversation. If you donate to campaigns, this affects fundraising math. If you consume political media, this will dominate for weeks. Practically, what are informed people doing? They are watching flight tracking data, which is public. They are following the SDNY court docket filings. They are ignoring social media rumors and waiting for documents. They are asking their financial advisors if they have exposure to Trump-related equities and what their hedge is if political instability increases. If you are in legal trouble yourself, you should be asking how this case changes self-surrender assumptions and what the bar for flight risk determination is going forward. Knowledge helps. This isn't just palace drama. This is the legal system testing its own limits in real time. You are watching it happen. How did the Trump family respond? Honestly, they made it worse. Donald Trump went on Truth Social Saturday morning and posted 9 times in 2 hours. A quote from the first post: political persecution. My beautiful daughter is being hunted by corrupt Biden judges. Note that Biden hasn't been president for over a year. Quote from the third post. Melania's words were twisted. The fake news deposition is a scam. Melania has not responded. Her spokesperson issued a 4-word statement. Mrs. Trump has no comment. That is it. 4 words. The reaction on Truth Social saw engagement spike, but external media coverage focused on the Biden judge's error. Republican congressional leaders have been mostly silent. Only 3 House members publicly defended Ivanka by name. Eric Trump called into a podcast Saturday afternoon stating, "This is a witch hunt and my sister is strong. She'll be vindicated." He didn't say where she is. Prosecutors fired back with a clean statement. The defendant's family statements are not a legal defense. We await her surrender. Then Saturday evening, the judge added the aiding and abetting inquiry to the docket, specifically naming Jared Kushner as a person of interest. That is not cooling down. That is heating up. Kushner's attorneys responded Sunday morning stating, Mr. Kushner traveled to the Bahamas for scheduled business meetings. He has committed no crime and resents the implication. Note what is missing. Any mention of Ivanka, any denial of knowledge, and any statement of cooperation? What is still unclear? Number one, where is Ivanka Trump right now? The marshals say they have credible leads, but they aren't sharing them. Number two, what was on that second plane? The flight manifest is sealed. The tail number leads to a Montana LLC registered 2 weeks ago with a single officer, an attorney in Boca Raton, who is not talking. Number three, will Melania testify again? Prosecutors have indicated they may call her for the aiding inquiry. Her attorney says she will comply if subpoenaed. Here is what is coming. Judge Hayes has a hearing scheduled for Tuesday, February 10th. The topic is the status of fugitive recovery and potential aiding charges. Kushner is reportedly back in the country as of Saturday night and is expected to be questioned voluntarily for now. The Secret Service director is scheduled to testify before a House Oversight Committee on Thursday, February 12th. That hearing is expected to focus on security protocols, and questions about Ivanka Trump's former protection status are likely to come up. The date many legal observers are watching most closely is Tuesday, February 10th. That's when Judge Hayes is expected to hold a status hearing that could determine whether additional charges related to alleged assistance or obstruction move forward. If unresolved issues remain by then, the legal posture of the case could shift significantly. There are also unanswered questions about international dimensions. If any individual connected to this matter were to appear abroad, it could raise diplomatic complications. So far, no foreign government has issued a statement, but the lack of public information is drawing attention. As of Sunday, February 8, 2026, this situation remains highly unusual. Public appearances have been canceled. Statements from key figures have been limited or non-existent. Legal counsel has been retained by multiple parties, but no comprehensive narrative has been offered. Several dates now anchor the timeline. Tuesday, February 10th, a status hearing that may clarify whether the case escalates or stabilizes. Thursday, February 12th. Secret Service oversight testimony before the House. Friday, February 13th, a response deadline related to a potential subpoena. What remains unknown is as important as what is known. Have prosecutors fully mapped travel records? Have communications been preserved? Are additional witnesses being questioned? Those answers are not public yet. What is clear is that once a legal process reaches this stage, everything becomes part of the record. Statements, transactions, movements, and timelines. The longer uncertainty persists, the more complex the legal consequences can become. On the surface, this looks like confusion and internal strain. Underneath, it reflects how the legal system actually works, slowly, methodically, and on paper. For people accustomed to controlling outcomes, that process can feel chaotic. Three things now matter most: what emerges from the Tuesday hearing, whether subpoenas expand the circle of legal exposure, why certain figures remain silent, and what that silence signals. When the next filings appear, likely early this week, the real story will be in the documents themselves, not speculation, not reaction, filings, timelines, evidence. That's where this stands now.